In this episode, I share maybe my favorite piece of writing that I've written so far. Sometimes in Plumb Practice, the words just come out and they're poetry. It's magic right away. And other times, it's not that. Plumb Practice is for getting the words out in whatever mood you're in. Show up to the practice and something will happen. Welcome to the Plumb Podcast. This is a podcast for possibility.
We begin from a unique starting point and the conversation unfolds from there. We express authentically and we create the space for you to do the same.
Hi, I'm Rosalee.
And I'm Sarah.
And we are the Plumb Collective.
The starting point for this episode is Plumb Practice. The point of Plumb Practice is to get the words out. Here on the podcast, we're sharing with you getting our words out. That is a part of every Plumb Practice session. One of the really interesting things about using Plumb Practice as a starting point is we don't know what's going to happen, ever. Every time it's different, every time it's fresh, every time we have an experience with it. Plumb Practice is a guided sensory experience that leads you into time for self-expression. The conversations that naturally come out of Plumb Practice are so unique and inspiring and creative. We never know what's going to unfold, but it's always interesting. It just surprises us every time. Plumb Practice is a gentle and incremental way to get to know yourself more fully, and we've found it so beneficial on our healing journeys. But that's not to say that every single time we come into Plumb Practice, we feel amazing afterwards, or we know that we've healed something every single time. That's not what this is, and it's not what happens. But sometimes what we write just comes tumbling out in this magical form, and it just feels like it, and we know it's really done something for us. That's what you're going to hear in this episode. But on the next episode, which will be part 2, we will show you a conversation that came out of a writing that did not feel good, that did not feel magical and, ooh, this is it. It felt like digging through something that was a little bit more difficult to be with. We want to illustrate that Plumb Practice is for whatever mood you're in, whatever you're experiencing, and whatever you write is it, even if it doesn't necessarily feel good. We can trust the process.
The simplicity of push play.
Yeah.
Show up for yourself. It's 1 hour once a week. You can do it. You can get those words out so that they're not just banging around inside of you, that you can see them, you can witness them, you can question them, you can wonder about them.
The reason why this is part 1 of this 2-part series is because we want to show you the contrast between when the writing feels magical and when it doesn't, and that neither is right and neither is wrong. Both are it. That's what happens when you show up to practice. Sometimes it's going to feel amazing, and sometimes it's not going to feel amazing. Getting the words out is participating in Plumb Practice.
You're about to hear something magical. You're about to hear something that will have you feel sparkly on the inside, something that energizes you and you might not know why. It might not make full sense to you as you are hearing my words, as you hear the things that I wrote during this session of Plumb Practice. But I do believe you will feel different. You'll feel the magic, the energy that the words carry will impact you, even if you're not really sure what I'm saying.
A really cool thing about this writing is that the writing ended up being about Plumb Practice. The session of Plumb Practice that this writing came from is called Make a Mark.
The Make a Mark series carries the energetic concept of creativity. It is a spark for your imagination. Your creativity naturally emerges through listening to the sensuization. You connect to a part of yourself. If you're hearing me say this now and you're like, oh, I'm not creative, listen to Make a Mark. You might feel differently about yourself after you participate in this series of Plumb Practice.
If you want to experience the Make a Mark sensuization for yourself, you can join the Plumb Practice membership where you have access to all of our Plumb Practice sessions. You can also purchase Make a Mark as a standalone series. We'll put links in the description box of this episode, how to sign up for the membership, as well as where to find the individual series as well. Now we are going to move into the witnessing part of Plumb Practice. It's okay to listen as an observer, watching and hearing what's going on from the surface. But there is also the opportunity to listen more deeply as a witness. If you listen as a witness, listen for yourself. Notice what you sense and what you feel. Follow your imagination if it comes in. Take note of words or phrases that stand out to you if you want.
To form and leave the hive, marked by life, existence with a chance of victory, knowing or realizing the existence of something, you come alive. The blueprint, something or someone serving as a model or providing guidance. I have felt a shift in myself in the last few days. I have felt sad. I know that that is signaling a shift. I'm releasing something and I'm letting something in. I am in flow. I'm sad because I have been consistent. I keep saying the same things, refining and choosing the most accurate words to describe the feelings and sensations. I am clear, and yet, and still, some people purposely misunderstand me and are mean to me. I have been accurately describing what I was creating all along the way. As Plum has come into focus for others, I see and know the blueprint, the framework I insisted on. I knew certain things were important: fun, integrity, following the feeling, and more. If we didn't like it, it wouldn't be sustainable. We had to like it first. We made adjustments. I had the thought when Sarah was reading the sensuization, I can't believe we were thinking we would do this twice a week. I love Plumb Practice, and I think one of the reasons I love it is because of the space in between. It is important. The white space on the page is just as important as the blue lines that define the space. What we write needs space to breathe, space to rest, space to integrate, space to forget, and space to remember. I thought I'd be writing a totally different entry. If we wrote it immediately following last week or any time before now, this moment, this entry wouldn't be made up of these words: black lines on white space, modeling and guiding by the courageous, bold act of making a mark on the page, starting with a starting point and playing the game. Write the words that are right there, right here, right now. Sometimes words from the past or words from the future show up in the right now. We don't know where they're from when they're inside. They need to come out to come alive. To form and leave the hive, marked by life, in existence with the chance of victory, knowing or realizing the existence of something, you come alive.
Wow. I don't even know what I'm going to say, but I'm just like, well, I think the thing that stood out, I think that's the boldest, is your bread. I just have questions. It sounds like a definition, but I don't think it is. Or is it? Please tell me.
It is technically, I guess, two definitions. To form and leave the hive is a definition of swarm, and swarming is a definition of alive, which I would never have ever thought ever. So I initially looked up the word alive because that was bold to me. I knew that that would probably be my bread if there was something in the definition that stood out to me. And so to see swarm, I was like, or swarming as part of alive, I just thought that's what? And then to read the definition for swarm, I mean, there's multiple definitions. When I'm redefining something, I'm always put my sparkle on it. It's not exactly Merriam-Webster. To form and depart from the hive or something like that was part of the definition of swarm. And so I just automatically felt like, oh, that rhymes. I did not think like, oh, so much of this rhymes. That was really cool to hear it out loud as I was reading it and feel that. I'm sorry, I'm going into more of my.
No, I need to hear it.
Okay. But to form and leave the hive was swarm. And then everything else is a definition of alive. And there's more definitions of alive, but the ones that were bold to me in this moment are marked by life, in existence, with a chance of victory, knowing or realizing the existence of something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything to say about it except for it feels extremely profound and poetry again. I mean, you done it again. And would you please read the last sentence that comes before the bread and then read the bread again? I need to hear it again.
Sometimes the words from the past or words from the future show up in the right now. We don't know where they're from when they're inside. They need to come out to come alive. Ooh.
Yeah.
To form or leave the hive, marked by life, in existence with a chance of victory, knowing or realizing the existence of something, you come alive.
I don't know what to say.
I'm crying about it.
Yeah. Well, so the bread feels to me like really profound, and I don't fully like I don't have anything to say about it because but the sentences before that feels like definitions of what happens for you when you read for someone, or what can happen for anyone when they participate in Plum Practice or the diner. It just, I feel like shocked by that because it's so beautiful and exactly it. And I mean, you can look at Plum Practice as we're just writing down, like it's simple. And then you can say that and be like, holy shit, I don't know if I can even say anything else. The definition is so beautiful. I was so taken with it from the beginning. It just felt sparkly. I mean, the word hive, I was thinking of bees, but bees with sparkles, fairy bees. I don't know.
Well, I
So
love that.
right from the beginning, it just felt like, okay, this is magic. You started with writing about your sadness and the shift that you're feeling. What happened next? Do you remember?
Well, the blueprint was my prompt.
Okay.
So that's where I started. And it was like I started there, but kind of skipped over it and went to the sadness and then came back to the blueprint.
So blueprint and sadness. And then, okay, so you're talking about how you've always held the blueprint for Plum the whole time. And it's coming more in focus. Okay, then what happened?
Then it was like, well, what is the framework? The framework is fun and integrity and following the feeling. I mean, there's more.
Yeah.
So, and more, but those three things are blueprint-esque. I really was taken by the fact of like, oh my God, we thought we could do this twice a week. That wouldn't have ever been sustainable. But oh, what a couple of cuties that we thought that would be, helpful. But we realized it was too much, that we needed more space, that it is actually more profound with space, with not doing anything, that's actually more helpful than trying to do more, to put more effort in. That was part of it, the space. And then I didn't realize it until I wrote it and read it back, but that talking about it that way really is connected to Make a Mark, because I'm talking about the white space. And I literally wrote, I have to find it. If we wrote it immediately following last week or any time before now, this moment, this entry wouldn't be made up of these words: black lines on white space, modeling and guiding by the courageous, bold act of making a mark on the page, starting with a starting point and playing the game. Write the words that are right there, right here, right now. Sometimes words from the past or words from the future show up in the right now. We don't know where they're from when they're inside. They need to come out to come alive, to form and leave the hive.
Oh man, it's so good. So my witness statement is I just want to hear you read it again and let's do the play-by-play of how it all happened. This beautiful writing about Plum Practice came out during Plum Practice. It's beautiful and profound and such a, I don't know, I feel like I'm just yelling at you that it's just so beautiful.
Thank you. I mean, I never think to myself, oh, I have to connect the dots and I need to make this writing make sense with my last writing and blah, blah, blah. Ever. Not at all. And so for it to just come out and be such an example of making a mark, an example of Plum Practice in Plum Practice.
That's exactly what I was trying to say.
And just to think of the words being inside, being like a hornet's nest and feeling like, okay, they have to come out and form to leave the hive. I still don't understand why swarming is the definition of alive, but thinking of a swarm and the activity and that is aliveness, but to think I have bees inside of myself, or when I'm uncomfortable or when I'm frustrated or sad or angry or some emotion that's like, well, do you have bees inside? Do you need to let them form and leave the hive? A riddle. Okay, Mother Goose, but that's who I am. That's how I talk. That's how I write. And I don't even realize it. I don't realize it as it's happening.
That means you're in flow, in my opinion.
Yes, I think so. And that I trust that the process, the blueprint, the framework works. That if you don't try to figure out what you're saying before you say it, you don't edit yourself before it's on the page, you can always edit it. You can do whatever the fuck you want after it's out, but let it come out the way that it is. Now I'm yelling at everybody else. Don't fuck around with it. Get it out, and then you can see your own magic that way. I didn't know about I mean, I knew that I was clever. I knew that I said things that are quotable, but I didn't realize how gentle I speak to myself. I didn't know how much I rhyme and how musical I sound just in my natural way of speaking. Knowing or realizing the existence of something, that's a part of alive. Knowing or realizing the existence of something.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And that was directly in the dictionary, that phrase.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like the dictionary could be thought of as the most boring volume of all. And yet it's filled with poetry if you know where to find it. And how do you know where to find it is what's bold to you. And you look it up. It's incredible. It's magical.
Well, thank you. I think this is my favorite witness statement you've ever given.
Oh, okay, great. Because I'm not saying anything. I'm just yelling at you.
I love it. Because you're alive. You're letting your bees out. And I feel it.
It's such a great example of what Plum Practice is all about, illustrated by magic and poetry.
Well, thank you. This was exciting.
It was. Is there anything else you want to say about it?
No, I'm so curious what you wrote. I must hear it now.
Okay.
Your bees. Let them out.
I also had a magical, sparkly, creative experience with this sensuization. We're not including my writing and the conversation that we had about my writing in this podcast episode. But if you're interested in hearing me get my bees out, you can join the Plum Practice membership or purchase the Make a Mark series, and then you can hear my writing and the rest of our conversation. Tune in next week for part 2 of this podcast episode, where we will share another conversation about another piece of writing from the Make a Mark series. But this piece of writing did not feel good coming out. These 2 podcast episodes illustrate that the framework of Plum Practice works. You can come to Plum Practice in any kind of mood, whatever is going on in your life, and something will show up. Sometimes that something feels magical and sparkly.
And sometimes what shows up is you feel like you're filled with rocks and rage. Join us for part 2, where you get to hear my gravel and the feelings when I start Plumb Practice in a foul mood. My mood shifts a little bit, but it doesn't resolve. I don't end up feeling better by the end of the session.
That's not the point of Plumb Practice. The point of Plumb Practice is to get the words out, whatever they are. Practicing, showing up as you are with whatever is inside you, sparkly magical bees or rocks and rage, that getting those words out is how you come alive. Tune in next week for a new episode of the Plumb Podcast, where you'll hear a new conversation unfold from a new starting point. The conversation will be different, but we will always express ourselves authentically, and we create the space for you to do the same.